6th meeting of this fiscal year, so it's about the halfway point of our fiscal year, and it's our 9th Zoom meeting. So we're getting to be pros at this Zoom stuff. As usual, this meeting will have a short business portion before we get to our presentation from Kris of Poorhouse Quilt Designs. The presentation is on how to choose and use interfacing, stiffeners, and fusible foams, which I think is a timely and possibly reinforcing follow-up to last month's name tag presentation from Catherine Flowers. And then, of course, lastly, we have our drawing for the Valentine's Heart and Chocolates themed basket. Next slide, please. All right. Zoom tips and / As we are beginning the meeting now, it is time to please everybody mute themselves. Make sure that you look for the / in the microphone icon. We will be recording today's meeting to be available for later viewing online. There we go. And please use the chat feature if you need to ask a question during the presentation. Also, you can leave the meeting at any time. Secretary's minutes. We sent the minutes, a link to the minutes is what I'm trying to say, in the February 1st e-blast to give you a chance to read them. It's a little too lengthy to present in this venue. So if you have read it and if you have questions or changes you think should be made, now is the time to either unmute and say so or send me a chat. But otherwise, we will accept the minutes as presented. And next slide. Although I love that photo. And we're on to the treasurer's report, which the good news is that we are even a little bit more in the black than last month. So that's really good news. And, you know, it's a very close balancing line between profit and loss this year. So that's wonderful. And it's really thanks to all of the people who are keeping us solvent by donating and buying raffle tickets. So thank you everybody who has done that. And next slide. All right. Again, if you know anybody who needs cheering up, please let Doreen Waller.
Michelle, sorry. It's Glenna. Just before you go on, can you just formally accept the treasurer's report, please?
Did I forget that again? Okay.
It's all right. I did too for just a second. So.
All right. If there are no questions or comments, the treasurer's report can be accepted and filed for audit.
Thank you.
All right. If you know anyone who needs cheering up, please let Doreen Waller and myself know, and we will see to it that they get a card. I would also like to encourage you to send notes or emails to your ECNG friends or our new members or someone random during this time of still being largely confined to our homes during a cold and dreary season. And it could be a friendship card, thinking of you, what are you working on, Valentine's Day, Easter, thank you, or something humorous or something sassy. Depends on what your friends like. So it's an opportunity for you to use your imaginations and your creativity, particularly if you make your own card. So that's my unofficial challenge to you all, to show this small kindness to our other members. And then we have the new member-to-member marketplace. It is up and running, and there are 7 postings of items for sale. And so be sure to check it out if it's something you're interested in. Here we are. Today's raffle basket is, of course, the Valentine's basket. The March raffle basket will be an Easter bunny theme with a beautiful bunny. You can see him there. We're calling him Peter Rabbit, but you can call him anything you want if you win him. And this was made and donated by Marjorie Talaco. So thank you very much, Marjorie. And you can purchase tickets sending, they're $2 a piece, and you can pay by PayPal or by check, which you have to mail to me by February 28th. And the drawing will be at the March meeting for this one. And please note on your payment which basket it's for. So I'm also going to give you a little teaser about the April basket. The theme is April showers bring May flowers. It has a needle felted cookie cutter flower kit, a wool covered embroidered spool for holding your embroidery scissors, and it will have a potted plant as well. The May basket is a quilting tote bag. It has 10 quilting rulers or templates, 4 coordinated batik fabrics, 1 package of printed treasures, inkjet printable fabric, as seen in Catherine Flower's name tag presentation, and 1 package of 48 thread spool huggers. So those are the upcoming raffles. You can buy any of them at this point in time if you're interested in them. And next slide. Here we go. All right, is Kris ready? All right, so while we're setting up and getting ready, Kris Poor is now.
I am ready.
There you are, Kris.
Hi.
All right.
So, are you guys ready for me?
We are. We're very interested to hear what you have to say. I think this is going to be a very good fit after last month.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And do you want me to get going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready. We're ready to turn it over to you.
Okay.
Nobody wants to waste or spend a lot of time on the business part of the meeting.
Okay.
They want to get to the good stuff, which is you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm Kris Poor, and I'm the owner of Poor House Quilt Designs. And I'm sorry, and I apologize for looking down, but I always have to, I'm looking at my notes just to make sure that I get everything. So you might know my pattern design business from the wreath pattern, the fold and stitch wreath. I design patterns from my home studio in Derry, New Hampshire. Poor House Quilt Designs is a wholesale only supplier to the quilt industry. So Poor House Quilt Designs was founded in 2006 after designing the sampler tote as a gift for a family member. So I have a degree in engineering and a love of color and pattern, and those pursuits came together in Poor House Quilt Designs. I enjoy experimenting with different materials to see how they come out for people. I work with Bosal Foam and Fiber up in Maine. I'm hoping you're familiar with them. They're a big part of my business. I'm a partner with them. And I originally called this Beyond the Batting, and then I changed the name of the presentation to Material Support, and now I changed it to Support Your Dreams. Why is that? Because I think as creators, we are always looking at our material, our threads, our what we have, and we have a vision in mind. And we need to know how to create those and how to actually get them to come out how you want them to come out. So that's why I called this Support Your Dreams. And I don't know if you noticed in the background here, I have a lot of Christmas stuff in the background. I run a program called Kris Kringle Stitch and Mingle, and I have one last meeting next week. So that's why everything is still Christmassy behind me. So let's go to the next slide.
I am getting nothing on my screen. Is everybody got it but me?
No, I'm not getting it.
No.
Everyone
okay.
needs to select speaker view.
Speaker view.
Oh, well, that's okay. I'm gonna come back and I'll show you later. We can stick with the slides for now. So the team at Poorhouse Quilt Designs is Kris Poor and Bill Poor. As I said, I have a degree in engineering, but I wanted to stay home with my boys because my husband Bill was traveling so much that it was hard to keep up with the logistics of watching my boys. So as of 2016, Bill retired and he runs the second part of our business, which is a laser contracting business. We do laser cutting kits for shops and for designers to sell to you folks. We're kind of a behind the scenes type thing in laser. And I hope you'll ask any questions you have in the chat because I've got it right up here and I'll just keep an eye on it. So next slide. So interfacing, it supports, it shapes, and it stabilizes your project. As you know, most projects last longer and look more professional with the correct interfacing. Today, I'd like to talk about 4 common types of interfacings and some hints and tips that can help, that you can put into practice today that will make a difference in your sewing. So on the next slide, this is kind of an agenda of sorts. I'm going to talk about different degrees of support. We've got soft support, which interfacing and fusible fleece provide. We've got rigid support, which is, you can think of Peltex, the Pellon product, or Craftex, which is the Bosal alternative. We've got moldable support, and this is support that you can control through heat. And this isn't as common, but I just wanted to throw it out there for you folks, especially since you're more of a needlecraft guild and you might be more open to these fun interfacings. And then lastly, I want to talk about textured support, which is provided by foam. So foam not only provides strength, it also provides texture when you're quilting it and doing other things to it. So it's really nice to have on hand a selection of products to achieve your dreams. So let's take a look at the next slide. So soft support, we're going to talk about interfacing and fusible fleece. Interfacing is used to give additional strength, support, or shape to sewing, quilting, and crafts. It's not intended to be visible in the finished project, so that's why it's not the most colorful or fun choice you have to make, but you do have to make choices. It's commonly used in garment sewing to reinforce buttonholes and stiffen collars and cuffs. You can also use it to apply an applique, stabilize a lighter fabric, and prevent fraying. Fusible fleece also gives strength, support, and shape to your projects and is a standard product for bag making, giving just a little body to your project, sorry. So I'm hoping we have some bag makers here because I'm going to be talking about that. So on the next slide, let's start with interfacing. There's woven versus non-woven. And also I'll include knits in this choice. Featherweight to heavyweight weights, and then you have to choose fusible versus sew-in. So woven is created from warp and weft fibers interwoven together. It doesn't have any stretch, but it can also shrink. So that's a consideration. Non-woven, think of it like felt. It's just fibers put together. And non-wovens don't have a grain. They have little or no shrinkage and don't ravel. I do not pre-shrink any non-woven products. Knits, great for t-shirt quilts. They're also, a lot of people use them for bag lining, reinforcing bag linings too. So that's just something you can have in your toolbox to use when you're making bags. Feather or lightweight is meant to be used with lightweight or delicate fabrics to add strength and durability. Midweight works for a wide variety of projects. Heavyweight interfacing is great for adding structure to purses or brims of hats. Fusible is what I go to most of the time because I'm lazy. It's convenient to use as a heat activated adhesive on one side. It can be ironed to the wrong side of your fashion fabric, giving complete contact. What you need when you're using fusibles is time and pressure. You have to choose the correct time and pressure. That sounds difficult, but it's really easy. I'm going to show you how you're going to decide your own method of fusing. And sew-in is ideal for fabrics, say you're using gold lame or something like that. You can use a sew-in. So let's go to the next slide, which is actually just a different view of this slide. Next slide. So how do you choose? So to choose the right interfacing for your project, if your fabric is one that can be safely ironed and doesn't have decoration or texture that would be ruined by pressing, then you can use a fusible interfacing. The most important thing to consider when choosing interfacing is the weight of your fabric. So what you don't want is an interfacing that is heavier than your fabric. What you can have though is an interfacing that might be a similar weight, but a little bit stiffer. Okay. So another thing you want to consider is knit interfacings have the least stiffness and non-woven interfacings have the most. It's a good idea to have on hand a few different weights of interfacing and make test samples to see what works best. At the same time, when you're making test samples, it might be a great idea to keep those test samples in a notebook with your notes on what you used as a temperature, what you used for time, and what you might have used as an additional tool. So if you're going to use a tailor's clapper, for example, it might be a great idea to note that. So next slide. This quote is, this is something I think of all the time. So I said before, we can get started today with what we're going to learn. I really like this quote. It also reminds me to stop researching. And so what I mean by researching is going all over the web to try to decide if you're using the right thing, or going on Pinterest and getting lost in there, and just get started. So a lot of what you have, you probably have at home. So now what I'm going to do is I'd like to go to my overhead camera and just show you some stuff. So if you could spotlight the overhead, that'd be great. So these are my tools, and let me get the light on here, that I use with using different interfacings. I have my press cloth. I have my plain water in a spray bottle, and those misters are great. I have my little white eraser, a little heart for Valentine's Day. Why do I have that? When I cut different interfacings, they often get embedded in my cutting mat. I can use this white artist eraser to get rid of those fibers that get embedded in there. If you get enough fibers, the problem is your rotary cutting won't be the same. So that's important. And then my clapper. I like my clapper when I'm using thicker materials or different or many layers. And mostly when we talk about foam, I'm going to be using my clapper to do seams, but I will tell you that next time when we get to the foam part. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we are going to okay, actually I went too quickly to the demo part, but I'll show you this demo right now anyways. I'd like to show you how I'm using interfacing in this. It's a ball. It's called the Holiday Bauble, and it's just made with interfacing. Okay. So this ball starts with three strips. Okay. What we're doing, using 3 strips of fabric. And what we have to do next is fuse our appliques. And we're fusing those in 4 locations on each strip. And it's already done on this strip. Okay. So when we get to that part, we've already done this. The next thing we're going to do is put on our interfacing. So for our interfacing, we are going to use Decker Bond, but we're going to use 2 strips. So I have 2 strips here, and what I will do is I will take and put 1 strip on first. And so many of the things I'm going to show you today, you can take and judge, okay, will I need 1 layer or 2 layers? But I just want to show you how to do 2 layers. So when I'm doing Decker Bond, it has laminated fusible on the back of it. I'm going to put that towards my fabric. When I fuse it on, I'm first going to take a press cloth. And what I'm using is a gauzy diaper. I'm going to spritz it with water. And then what I'm going to do is just fuse that down. Then the surprising thing is that you're going to just do it until your press cloth is dry. The next thing you want to do is let this set for about 5 minutes, okay? Then you can fuse on your second strip. Once you do that, you're going to go through the same sequence, spritz it with water, fuse it, let it dry, let it cool off. I'm sorry. You're going to make sure this is dry, and then you can get going. So let's get this on here. I'm not going to iron, I'm going to press. You want a little pressure. Again, we're not going to touch this for 5 minutes. Okay. What we'll end up with, then what we're going to do is actually do the applique around so that we capture our strips. Okay. So then what we'll do to make our ornament, stitch 2 together so we make a ring. So I'm going to stitch this together across here. So I have 2 rings and I leave the third one not stitched. I'll take and put one inside the other. You can rotate. What I'm trying to do is rotate so that the end of that applique meets this applique. And we have this pattern, it's called Holiday Baubles. And the next thing you're going to do is put the last one through the inside. Outside. We're going to go inside again. We'll bring this to the machine, and then what I usually do, I'm going to take and turn it, stitch it, and turn it back. Then that seam goes behind this layer. So luckily, this is a complete one. This is one that is 3 rings together. Now I'm going to hand stitch all the ends of the appliques. So where those appliques come together, you see 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hand stitch together here, 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 and here. Flip it over and hand stitch here, 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 and here. Once I do that, I can squeeze it together and have my holiday bauble. So I've taken and put my hanger on it, and so that can be an ornament, or it can be a bowl filler. Okay, so with just the right amount of interfacing, I'm able to get the right amount of stiffness for this ornament. So let's go back to the slides. So I just want to tell you that even though a pattern designer might tell you, okay, it requires one piece of interfacing, if you feel that it doesn't, then use more. And it's great to experiment with this stuff. So the next slide is the Sew Together wallet. And this is a project that we did with a pre-printed interfacing, but I just want to use the concept of printed interfacing to remind you that the nice thing about interfacing is you can put it on your cutting table and you can write on it with chalk or a pen and use that to fold, to press, to stitch from the wrong side. So that's what we did here. And I'll show you when we go to overhead again, what we've done with the straps on this one. So interfacing, just plain old light interfacing is great for those thin straps. So keep that in mind. So on the next slide, again, we're going for soft support. And this is called the Holiday Stars. And this is another example. Our Holiday Stars ornament just needs just a bit of structure. It doesn't need a ton of structure, but you can use what you have on hand. So we say, okay, use Decker Bond, but if you had, for example, another lighter woven, you could always use 2 layers instead of the 1 layer of Decker Bond. So just test it, try it out, and keep those test coupons that you make up. So on the next slide, I'm showing a pattern that we have. It's called Seashore Totes. And the method that I use to make up the lining. So instead of just putting a plain lining in there, what we did was we used an oversized piece of interfacing first. So in this case, we use Decker Bond because it's more of a stiffener than an interfacing. Okay, so this is a non-woven, more stiff Decker Bond. I put my lining on it, and then I added my lined pockets. So I want to also stress that too. If you want your pockets inside your totes to last longer, line them. Okay, they don't have to be lined with Decker Bond. You can line it with something lighter. In fact, for zipper pockets inside my totes, I prefer using a product, the woven SF101, the soft shape. I really like that. So I would recommend always keeping on hand the soft shape SF101 and Decker Bond, which is either a 70, I gotta remember what that number is. Decker Bond is a Pellon product. So if you go to Joann's, you can get it. And I'm looking back to make sure I have the right number. You can find it. Just put in Decker Bond in Google. I don't have that written down. And I really recommend having those two products on hand. So let's go to the next slide and take a look at testing. What I want to talk about right now is I've been saying testing all the time. You want to test, test, test. But how do you test? Let's go back to the overhead. So number one, this is SF101, and I'm going to try to show it a little closer to you. Let's see if we can get this to focus a little more. You can see, I hope you can see how gauzy this is. I'm going to actually turn off this light. I think we're getting too much light there. Okay, so you can see how gauzy this is. So just by looking at the airspace between the warp and the weft, you know this is going to shrink. So I pre-shrunk this just in warm water. I let it sit in the warm water for 10 minutes. It was clear when it came back out. All I did was squeeze it out, rolled it up in a towel, and just hung it dry. I'm not going to put it, this is fusible, so I'm not going to put it in the dryer because that would loosen up the adhesive. That just is, it's not going to be good for you anymore. But even when I hung it dry, it's a little wrinkly, but it's not that bad to use. So if you had a big garment to make that you were going to interface large sections, you're going to want to take and pre-shrink a larger piece and then cut what you need from your pre-shrunk yardage. But let's go ahead and test our Decker Bond. And this is how I go about this. Now, number one, I'm going to read what the manufacturer told me to use, and I'll take and let's focus now on this. Okay. And what I want to say first is when the manufacturer tells you a temperature, what they're telling you is the safest temperature for them to tell you. And what I mean by that is it's their temperature that they're telling you ensures that you're not going to do anything to your fabric to come back at them for ruining the fabric. So what I generally find is the temperature that they tell me to use is generally too cool to actually fuse. So I'm going to do this in a different way. I'm going to put my fusible side down to my wrong side of my fabric. Then what I'm going to do is spritz my pressing cloth I am going to use, I'm not going to go all the way hot, but I'm going to use wool. Okay. I am going to press, and I'm pressing pretty flat, pretty hard. And I'm going to press this until it's dry. So I didn't drown the press cloth. I just spritzed it. Now the press cloth is dry. So the nice thing is now I know, okay, number one, I don't want to go any further. When it's dry, it's done. So that's your timer. You can count out if you want your seconds, but I generally don't. So here we have our nicely pressed and interfaced piece. I can test on the side. Can I undo this? Not really. So I could work at it with a pin, I think, to get it off. But so make sure you got a press cloth, spritzer of plain water, no drowning, and that's your timer. Okay. You do want to take a look. And the other thing I do want to talk about too is sometimes you get bubbles in this. And what I find when I get bubbles is I've gone too hot to start with. So I've shocked it right away. It got too much heat. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. So, and then after that, I could cut my smaller piece from that if I wanted to. Okay, so I started with this. I can cut out the piece that I want from here. That's generally how I interface. The other thing I want to give you so we designed this sew together wallet, okay? And it comes with pre-printed interfacing. And the only reason I'm showing you this is if you want to make thin straps, okay, this is what comes in the package to make this, but you could actually draw these lines if you really wanted to be precise about where you're folding. You can do this with your rulers, draw on a piece of interfacing, okay? You're not going to see it. You can even do it with a Sharpie. No one's going to see. And it's just another technique that you can use. And I'm sure you have, even with a pencil, you can get that going. So keep in mind that you can mark your interfacing. And this is a shameless self-promotion, but we also have a book called Guide to Interfacing. It was written by me. It's a carry-along purse guide. And it just gives you all kinds of information on different interfacings. And what I like about it is we put together so say the pattern calls out Bosel 493, Interform Plus, double-sided fusible. You can look down and say, okay, there's a Pellon FF79 flex foam that I can get. I can't get this one, but this is what I can use in place of it. So that's a book that's Quilt Shops carry it, and you can get it online on Amazon. So it's called Guide to Interfacings. We also carry it on our online shop. And I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Our online shop is Dina's Quilt and Sewing Supplies, and I'll talk about that at the end because we have a little coupon code. You'll want to be sure to put that down. Okay. So now let's go back to the slides. So choose fusible fleece when you want soft body in your project. For things that don't need crispness, think zipper pouches, slouchy purses, placemats, table runners. It's a standard product for bag making, and you can use a combo of interfacing and fusible fleece if you need a bit of crispness for something else. and it's great for adding body to your pillow covers. I like Pellon 987 and 971 is thicker. I also like Bosal 425, which is really light, and 4252, which is duet fuse, and that is more like a batting that has fusible on it. So fusible fleece can be used as a stabilizer for machine embroidery. You can fuse directly to the wrong side of fabric, or you can first fuse some fashion fuse or shape flex and then fuse the fusible fleece on. You can quilt it for some soft texture. You can build a smidgen more structure by adding fusible fleece to the lining of your bag. So the only thing you'll want to do in that case, if you're adding fusible fleece to the lining of your bag, you're going to want to take it out of your seams. So that's just a consideration that you want to use. On your, let's take a look at the next slide. We're talking about stockings here, Santa socks. You can get some soft quilted texture as seen in this stocking. I love using fusible fleece for these types of projects, especially for gifts, because it's less likely to shrink if washed. Okay, so if you're giving to someone who may not be as careful, fusible fleece is really the way to go. Also, if you're making 18 stockings and for your grandchildren, fusible fleece is sometimes cheaper than good batting. Okay, so it's a polyester product, so no shrinkage. So for the next slide, there's no picture. Okay, so what about the next slide? There we go. Okay, so red and plaid pattern, I just wanted to show you this. This is a more modern looking table runner. What we did on this one was we used fusible fleece. We just stitched in the ditch. We added the regular binding to the sides of it, but we wrapped the binding all the way around. So we didn't fold it. We just added it and pulled it all the way around to the back, and that gave us that look. So it's just a modern binding, and it's easy to do with fusible fleece, and you can also do this with foam. So, and the fusible fleece obviously doesn't give you as much loft. It just gives you a little bit of a soft texture. On our next slide, I'm showing the pattern called Tea Leaf Bedroom Suite, and it includes a bed runner, but also this pillow. And what we did was we just reinforced it, fused it on at the end before putting together our pillow. It just adds another layer of softness. And sometimes the pillows that you get might be a little flat. So adding another layer of fusible fleece to the front and the back just gives your pillow a little bit more loft. So think about that when you're making pillows. So now I'd like to go back to the overhead camera. I'm really giving Kristen a workout here to show a quilting grid. And what this is a combination of a fusible fleece. Oh, there we go. And a quilter's grid. So this product here, I'm holding it up just so you can see it's already lined. So it's a marked product. Okay. And the grid is a Bosal product number 427, but it's also available from Pellon as a Pellon 820 and 821. So this is a product that's used if you wanted to create your own quilted yardage, but it's also a great product to have on hand if you want to add a little bit of quilted texture to bags or other accessories. So what you're going to do is take your fabric. So isn't that cute fabric? I'm going to take and from the wrong side, I'm going to fuse on my fusible fleece. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I generally, when I'm using fusible fleece, because I do want to maintain the loft of this, even though it's pretty thin, I'm going to take and fuse it from this side, because otherwise you're insulating the glue dots from the heat. I'm going to again squirt with a little water, just plain water. I'm going to again use a press cloth, and I'm pressing that down. So I'm just doing it this way. I just wanted to show you that you want to always fuse from the fabric side when you have something that has thickness. Now what we're going to do is take our grid, put that on top, and notice I've left the edges because what I don't want the loft in my seams of this piece. See that maybe a little better. And now on this side, since the glue dots are right here, I'm going to fuse from this side, laying my pressing cloth over, rinsing the press cloth. Again, because I'm using that as my timer. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to make sure to go in and go a little deeper on the edges, so I can fuse that down directly to the fabric, because what I've done now is sandwiched the grid over the fusible fleece then to the fabric. So I've got that little sandwich here. Now I can use these lines to stitch a grid, okay? I didn't give myself really enough time. I would probably go back and make sure those are pressed down. So again, the fleece is between the grid and the fabric. So now what we have, so I've quilted all these pieces here. So I've got a nicely quilted piece of fleece, a piece of fabric. I think you can see that better. And also, this is just interfacing and fabric at the edge. Let's see if you can see that. So that's going to go into a seam a lot easier. Okay, so it's a grid sandwich. Now, I didn't have to use, the nice thing about the grid, I didn't have to quilt all that. What I could do is decide, okay, I'll just use some of those lines. So I channel quilted this instead. And so I have a nicely quilted texture. There, you can see that better there. So that's something you might have that grid, you might want to go out and get it. The other thing is, you sure can draw this yourself. Okay, let me get this. Again, I need to take the light off.
That saves a lot of time.
You could draw this, you know, if you had a small piece that you wanted to do, why not draw it yourself? Then you can get your own quilted texture. It's really fun to do, and you'll really like how professional your results will look, okay? And I'm going to show you a little more of that when we get to the foam. So, I have any other examples? Dropping stuff, sorry. So let's go back to the slides. And we have, now we're going to go on to rigid support, okay? So what I'm talking about, so it would be the next slide after that, is non-woven heavy products like Peltex and Craftex. It can be fusible, doesn't have to be. And what you're going to want is to choose Peltex or Craftex when you want strong and durable support. And I like to think of this rigid support as kind of the skeleton of your project. So on the next page, we have, I'm just telling you what Bosal 436 is Craftex. You can also get a 437, which is a little heavier. And then you have Pelon 70, 71, and 72. Now, what are those numbers? Pelon 70 means no fusible, so 0, no fusible, so it's just a sew-in. 71 is a single-sided fusible, and 72 is a double-sided fusible. So this heavyweight stabilizer is great when you want to use a stiff interfacing. Use it in bag and bowl bottoms, sturdy purse straps, wreaths, and other 3D projects. Similar products include CT's Publishing's Timtex or Fast to Fuse. So you might be familiar with those products too. To make craft ticks, so say you bought a sew-in and you want it to be fusible. So say you have some in the back of your closet and you're like, oh, now I want to use it. Now I know what I can do with this. You can make it fusible just with a fusible web. So it's generally not included in a seam. It can be. I'm going to show you both, but you generally don't want it into the seam. So let's go to the next page, next slide. So that is the honeycomb handbag. So this is a fun handbag that's using pre-cut hexagon shapes that are cut from Craftex or Peltex. So this is one thing. If you have an AccuQuilt cutter at home, you can cut not only fabric, but you can cut Craftex, Peltex, you can cut foam. There's different other things you can cut. So don't limit yourself. So we wanted to use these pre-cut hexagons, which we used in the wreath that we showed on the previous slide, to make something else. So we put it into a tote. And what we did was we decided, okay, how are these going to go together? You can't seam them together. So what you're going to have to do is butt them together. We used a utility zigzag to sew them together. So they're just butted together, sewn together, and then put on a base of interfacing to create that one side of the tote. And then we also use Craftex or Peltex in the handles. On the next slide, I'm showing the bloom. So those are the same hexagons done in the fold and stitch method, okay? And so those are stitched together. You can definitely do it, but what you want to do is make sure you're using a good needle. So you could either use a denim needle, a top stitch needle, or a Microtex Sharp needle. I tend to use Microtex Sharp only because if I'm going through fabric too, I want to have the smallest hole possible. And that's how I do it. This project makes a great gift. It's a 14-inch diameter, really fun to make. So our next slide, we're going back to the overhead, and I want to show you how we're making it fusible. And we're also going to cover our hexagons, okay? So let's do this. I'm going to get rid of our baubles. So let's do. So this is Craftex. You can get this Craftex on a roll. This is a product that was used for, I don't know if you remember Auntie's 2 biscuit baskets, but this is a roll of Craftex. Okay, so say you have strips of Craftex and you said, okay, I want to make it fusible. All you have to do, this is a strip of Splendid web, and it's a fusible web. You can use Wonder Under, whatever. So say it's not fusible, you can take and make it fusible. So all I'm doing is taking Wonder Under or whatever I want. I'm going to put my fusible web onto it. following the manufacturer's instructions on this. Sorry about that. I don't know where that came from. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I'm assuming you can. All you're going to do is take the paper off. This was a little oversized, so that's why I have extra fusible on the side, but now I have a fusible strip. Okay, so if I wanted a shape to be fusible, I can make it fusible. Just use, and that goes for anything you have. So even if you had interfacing that wasn't fusible, if you want it, throw some Wonder Under on it, and now you can use it as a fusible. The second thing I wanted to show you was, so here's another view of a honeycomb handbag. This is the tote we had in the picture, okay? And how did we cover these hexagons? So these hexagons already have, and you can see the sheen. I'm hoping you can see the sheen of the adhesive on it. I don't think you can actually, but take my word for it. It's got adhesive on it. What you're going to do is fuse fabric to it. Okay, you're just going to fuse it. And in this case, it's got fusible on both sides. So you'll want to cover your pressing surface with either parchment paper or a Teflon sheet. I'm going to fuse this on. Then what I'll do is I will take and trim it. Once I trim it, I will start adding strips. So I just add one strip at a time all the way around. And every time I add a strip, I'm going to trim it to the previous strip's angle all the way around. Once I do that, I can take, and because it's fusible on both sides, I can take and fuse that side down. So again, I'm able, that's why I want it fusible on both sides. So pretty easy. I'm just going to make sure I'm using the edge of my iron here and that I don't go onto the fusible. So once I do that and have my pieces done, I'm going to butt them together and use a zigzag. That's a triple zigzag. It's the one that goes zig, 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 and zag, 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 and put those together. So I end up with, I'm going to just show you the back side of this. This is what, and you could probably see the stitch easier on the back side anyways. So that's the zigzag. Okay. And this is a different one that I did. And this is just sample pieces of embroideries that I made up. So this is one side of the tote bag. And this is the other. And you would just put them together. And this, in this case, I would put a piece of Decker Bond here first to hold the whole thing together. And then I would take and do some stitching to hold the Decker Bond to it. And that's why we do this stitching here. Makes it look like quilting, and it's really not quilting, but it's just holding the interfacing to it. And then what I would do is use a jeans needle or Microtech Sharp or a top stitch needle to hold, sew it together. I would use a size 90 or size 100 due to the thickness of this. So that's using rigid. And so now we need to go back to the slideshow. So Craftex and Peltex, I hope you'll try it. They're awesome. Now, this stuff is fun, fun, fun. And I don't know if anybody in your group has tried it, but moldable products are really fun to use. I'm going to start with moldable batting. That's on the next slide. So these are more unusual options that you have. So it's moldable batting is controllable, and it actually shrinks when you use it, and you can't unshrink it. So you kind of have to commit to what you're making. So it's a product, Bosel number 494. It's 100% polyester. It can add rigidity to totes, purses, bags, and craft projects. The level of stiffness achieved is achieved by controlling the heat, time, and pressure. Now, the original applications of this include costuming, theater props, set design, puppetry, millinery. They call it the modern buckram. Okay, so you know what buckram is? They call this the modern buckram. But we get to use it for fun craft projects. It actually cuts very easily, and it's the reason mainly this is the reason why I have my eraser, because this stuff will really go right into your cutting mat. You can actually use this product without fabric, okay? You can take this and shrink it down and paint it for making sculptures. You can add yarn to it. It's really kind of cool. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you our pattern called sunflower nesting bowls. So we devised a modern Dresden plate so that we can take advantage of the moldability of this product. This product is a combination of fleece mixed with a low melt polyester. So think, I don't know if you remember the Texture Magic product, but that's what's in this. So it's not all Texture Magic, but it's part of it. And once you mold it, again, I'll stress this again, you can't unmold it, okay? On the next slide, what we did was we made a bouquet from, what I did was I went to Walmart, I bought a sunflower bouquet, I popped the heads off of those sunflowers, threw those away, and then added my own textured flowers to it. Just hot glued them on, really fun. And just using my scraps. So that's a fun project. So on the next slide, this picture happens to be one of my favorite pictures too. This was a Hoffman fabric from 2013. And I believe personally that it should still be out all the time because it's so springy. It's a clutch made with heat moldable batting. And what we did was we took advantage of just good old channel quilting. And what you do is you're going to mold it a little bit after. You're just going to steam it, and it'll really bring that quilting right out. So the one thing you have to watch with this project, if you're making big lengths of yardage with this product, it kind of slips out in front of you. So what you'll have to do is always go one way and then switch directions back and forth, just so you don't get everything going in the wrong direction. So it kind of squishes out in front of the presser foot. Then the next slide, let's go to the demo. I want to just show you some the stuff on the overhead. So we have the tabletop Tannenbaum. Okay, so we're going to the overhead camera. And first thing I want to tell you is when you get a package of moldable batting, and let me just show you the package. Okay, it comes like this. And it looks like this. Looks just like fleece, okay? You're gonna wanna always keep it in the package because then you'll know it's moldable. The last thing you wanna do is make like a table runner with this, and and once you iron it, it might shrink 15%. You won't want that. So like I said, it looks just like any other fleece, so keep it in the package. So how are you going to use it? What you can do is take and do some quilting on it. So I just sandwiched it here between two pieces of fabric, did some quilting. Make sure you can see it. Okay. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take and mold this, okay? And I've got a plain bowl. You know those Corel bowls, they come in handy. And I'm going to take and use a little steam. You've got options here. You could actually spritz it with water and use a dry iron, or you can use steam from your iron. Now it's fogging up my glasses. This takes some time. When I show you the next product, which is called heat mold, which is a heat moldable stiffener, that molds right away. This just takes a little bit of time. So now what I have is a little bit of curve to my shape here. Okay, and it's also stiffer. So I could leave this, I could make a shape, or I could just shrink it. Okay, so this was the same size and I just shrunk it down. Now it becomes hard, but you can control the amount of shrinkage you want. Okay, so it's just something interesting if you wanted to do say you wanted to do a wall hanging that had a lot of leaves with some dimension, some of your leaves could stick out and some of them could go every which way. So it's a really neat product. So we made a Christmas tree from it. That's a little Tannenbaum, tabletop Tannenbaum. We've also made like I said, this was my favorite bag. So all we did was use it to emphasize the channel quilting. And here are the nesting bowls, okay? And I've also made a bouquet out of these too. This is the small one. This one was a medium size. Okay, so you can see the dimension here. I've also taken Mod Podge and painted it with Mod Podge so it becomes even harder. The thing with Mod Podge is though, just to keep in mind, it really, I mean, these are the same size. This just doesn't end up looking like fabric anymore. And I just don't like it anymore. So it's just a consideration, but you might want to make some part of this waterproof. Say you wanted to put these outside on your porch, you might want to take and hit it with Mod Podge just so it doesn't get damp and you can wipe it out. There's an environmental Mod Podge that you can use outside. So you just can look for that. They have it at Michael's. So I just want to show you how we made this. All we're doing is taking a piece of moldable batting. This is the backing. This is our flower. We're going to take and stitch all around the edge, all the way on the outside, not on the inside. Trim. Turn it to the right side through the center. So once you have that, you get this. It looks pretty terrible because you're not going to press this because you're not ready to yet. You want to put the center in, and then you can do some decorative stitching. After you do the decorative stitching is when you're going to want to take and mold it. So that's when you're going to want to take and put it over a bowl, okay, and then apply heat. Now you can usually apply more heat. The thing is you can't undo it, so it's good that this goes slowly, okay? Just take your time and see if you like it and just keep molding it. It's just a very different product that might be interesting and might be interesting for your name tags. You never know. So let's go back to, I want to talk about heat moldable stiffener next. So heat moldable stiffener is an interesting, so that would be on the next slide, is an interesting product. It actually comes from shoemaking. Okay, so we got the moldable batting from costume making. Now we got this stiffener from shoemaking. So if you have sneakers on right now, heat moldable stiffener is in the heel of your sneakers. Okay, and they just create the heel with heat. So what we did was made different leaf bowls. I don't know if you've seen these before, and different projects with heat moldable. You can get it in a fusible or non-fusible. And if you can guess, I prefer fusible. And it's very stiff. It's a thermoplastic, okay? Very, very stiff, but we can sew through it. So the nice thing about heat moldable stiffener is that you can mold it and then you can unmold it. Okay, you can flatten it out again and redo it. So on the next slide, I'd just like to show you the next, our next application. We did the pumpkin party bowls. And if you look at the top of that picture, you can see little tendrils that we did. What we did was we took strips of heat moldable stiffener, put them, fused fabric to them, cut them really thin, and then we're able to heat them up. When they heat up, they're almost soft. They're almost like a felt once you heat it up. Wrap it around a pencil, let it cool, and you get those little tendrils. The pumpkin itself is just a free form. You can use it as a bowl. You can use it as a decoration. It's really fun. On the next slide, you're going to see a leaf bowl. That's another leaf bowl that we've done. This is a birch. This is a fun gift to send somebody. Send it to them flat in an envelope and send them, email them a video on how you mold it. And then it's a fun little interactive gift. They can make their own bowl. The next slide shows the New York Beauty. So we did New York Beauty as a bowl. And it's not pieced together. It's just laid down and fused on top. So it's a great use of your fun scraps. We use a Microtex Sharp size 90 needle on most of these projects because what I found is I really enjoy using batik for these projects, and using the Microtex really helps. It's then molded into a freeform bowl shape, and lots of fun. The next slide, you're going to see butterfly accents. And this is a way to add some 3D fun to somebody's dorm room. So you can use the 3M strips to attach these to the wall, and they're very sturdy. And the antennae we used is just florist wire, the wrapped florist wire. So I just want to show you how we went about creating one of our projects. So our next slide is about the demo, and I'm going to show you how we create and mold projects using heat moldable stiffener. So I'm sorry there's not a sexy name for that, for the heat moldable stiffener. They don't come up with good names. So our next, I just want to show you, we're going to the overhead cam now. So this is our poinsettia bowl. So you can see the, I have Velcro on that. And that's only because when I used to go to shows before COVID, I used to stick this on the wall. Anyways, this stuff, let me give you just an idea of what it looks like. When you get it in the package, it comes like this, very stiff. I'm just gonna give you, listen to this. It's very stiff. Again, you're gonna wanna stitch with a Microtech Sharp Size 90. You can use a top stitch needle or a jeans needle with this, but I found the Microtech Sharp is actually the best for piercing this material. So how are we gonna use this? This has got fusible on both sides. And I apologize, I have all my stuff on the floor beside me. So what we're gonna do is start with a pattern, and we're gonna make a map on freezer paper. So there's our map. We're gonna cut out the outside of the leaf and draw the outer leaf onto our piece of heat moldable stiffener. Then what we're gonna do is cut these pieces apart, fuse those to all of our scraps, and add a little bit to it. So what you want is some overlap, and then you'll fuse this down. So it's really important at this time to use, you really do have to use a Teflon sheet or parchment paper, because if you take and fuse this down, your scraps down to make your leaf, you'll never use this again, because this has so much fusible on it. It's great. I love it. It's never going to come off, but you got to be pretty careful with it. Once you've done your shape, you're going to cut it out. And what I found is using the Karen K. Buckley scissors with this material is really good, because you can cut and it's not going to slip on you. So it's these are the micro serrated scissors. These work really well with this. So I'm going to cut out my whole shape, and then what I have to do is I'll end up with a plain back, right? So then I'm going to cover the plain back. I'm going to take another piece of fabric now, fuse that onto the back, and now I'm going to take and trim that right to the edge, like this. So far, really, really easy, right? Our next step is we're going to take and make some veins. And I'm using a variegated thread. I really like that. And I'm just using a straight stitch to make the veins. The last step is to make the main center vein. And all I've done here is couched on some yarn on top of this. So any kind of yarn you have, couch it on. It's just going to give you a little bit of dimension right there. And then what you do is you couch along the edge. And that's how we get our finished edge. I'm using either pearl cotton. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's couched on with a zigzag. Really easy and simple. And now let's mold it. So again, okay, so what I want to show you is I want to heat it up. I'm going to go from the back. I've spritzed on a good amount of water, or I could steam it. But what I found is I really like just spritzing on water, just using a dry iron. So I started out before with a really stiff project. Now what I have is something really flexible. It's warm, but it's not going to kill us. all we do is take and put that over the bowl. What I generally do is take another bowl and put it over it, okay? That way I don't have to stand here, and it's gonna take a few minutes, maybe a minute or so for that to cool down. Let's take a look at some other projects. So I showed you the poinsettia bowl. You can also make a poinsettia pin. So here's a little pin hot glued to the back. Okay, doesn't that look pretty? Few scraps. We've got a little fox bowl. Good for a nursery gift. Put some Q-tips in there, won't that be cute? Another leaf made with keef. You can take any project and make it bigger. So depending on the type of bowl you have, you can mold it with this. So that was a nice big leaf. We've got the birch. This is my personal favorite. And then here is a little example of a pumpkin. You can make all kinds of things. So now let's just take a look. Now this is a bowl. So here's the side view. Okay, all ready for you to add candy or whatever to it. The nice thing about this is if you didn't like the shape, now you can take it, turn it upside down, and we can flatten it back out again. Okay, it helps just to add a little water again. So it's a nice way to store your seasonal projects. You can just store them flat, okay? Mold it again next fall, you're all set. A friend of mine always gives these out with the candy kisses that come out with the gold foil. She takes some tulle, puts it over the bowl with the candy kisses in there, and you're all set. So again, that's heat moldable stiffener, just something different. Again, maybe a good idea for a name tag. I don't know. Okay, and our last consideration. So let's go back to the slides. And I hope I'm not driving you crazy with back and forth and back and forth. We are going to take a look at textured support. So we're talking about foam here. And I just want to say one thing. If you don't remember anything else, Vera Bradley uses foam-based battings in her bags. Enough said. If it's good enough for Vera, good enough for me. So on the next slide, foam gives you a great way to give a professional look to your bags. And you know, a bag is not that easy to make. Your friends might say, oh, how long did that take you? They'll never know how long it might take them. Interform gives extra support to your bags so they're not as slouchy as a bag made from batting can be. My preference is to use either fusible single-sided or fusible double-sided. I like Bosal Interform, and I'll tell you why. It's a little thinner than Annie's Soft and Stable, number one, so that if I have to layer up some layers, like if you look at the picture right here, I have a pocket that's in that seam on the side seam. So if I have to layer up some layers, I don't have as thick as if I was using Annie's Soft and Stable. And Pellon's Flex Foam, I just haven't used it enough to say anything about it, but that's available at your local Joann's. So if you have any of these foams at home and you haven't used them and you say, oh, what I have is the sew-in version, again, like I showed you before, you can definitely make them fusible. Okay, so the next slide. And the next slide is a little pouch called the pedal pouch. Again, we're showing a Bosal product that they die cut from foam, okay? They die cut a shape. Foam is so easy to die cut. So if you want to do something with foam that's die cut, go for it. So you can also applique, as you can see, right into the foam, and it gives you some beautiful texture, and it saves you some time. So you get the quilting look and you get the applique look at the same time. Foam adds great stability, so you can also do machine stitching or embroidery right through the foam. So again, it has stability and beautiful texture. So for the next slide, this is our scallop mats pattern, which is the first in a bunch of scallop patterns that we have. I drew up a scallop placemat for Bosal to cut because I wanted to make a bunch of different things. So we've done scallop placemats, we've done scallop bags, we've done scallop baskets with it. And basically what we do here is we're taking advantage of the height of the foam so that we can stitch around the scallops, and we can let Bosal do the hard work of cutting everything exactly, but we look good doing it, okay? So on the next slide, you'll see the fold and stitch wreath. So our 3D wreaths have been really popular, and the foam has made it really, really easy. I'll be happy to give you a quick demo of that project too, if you'd like. On our next slide, you're gonna see the Going Places hobo. This is another bag that's made, and it's not a slouchy bag, which is nice. It's made with 4 placemats. And so it's easy to add quilting or just feature your fabric. It always looks beautiful and professional. The next slide shows the roundabout bag, and and it says Going Places, but it's actually the roundabout. And I just wanted to show the example of the quilting on
I'm
here.
not sure.
Really sticks out, and it's an example of using a grid again. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
I'll
did.
show you that in the demo. And we are to the demo. So I'd like to go to the overhead camera again, just to show you a few things with foam. So this is the big bag. It's hard to show the whole thing on the overhead, but I just wanted to give you just an idea. I used the movement of the weeds here. I'm going to try to give you a better view. And just did some freeform channel quilting. And with the foam, it really looks cool. Again, we did some just some grid quilting here. And again, it's really nice with foam. I just wanted to also show you, because you mentioned doing name tags. This is an example of a booth sign I did, okay? And I'm gonna try to show you. I got some really good dimension on this. What I did was, this is a reverse applique, and all I did was I took all the layers, fused everything together, including the foam that's inside here, and then I appliqued around. So I got the quilting right as part of this project. Okay, so it's just an option. So reverse quilting on foam looks really cool too. Here's an example of applique right on foam, okay, right through the foam. Okay, so I get the texture of both the applique and I get a quilted texture too at the same time. Really nice, gives my project nice dimension. And here's another example of a finished piece that I did that with decorative quilting. Okay, so lots of dimension here, and I love it. So this is the petal pouch. So again, this is another example of using fabric, foam, so the foam's in between, and the SF101 interfacing. What you're doing is you're keeping the foam out of the seam line, but now you can quilt this, and you're going to get some beautiful dimension. Okay, so this is just a really great method. So keep this in mind. Even if the designer says, okay, put that pocket right into the seam, you can use this technique and just, keep everything thinner. So we had talked before about using a grid. So this is another grid, and this was a Pellon grid, I think, and it's a little darker. So you can see where we did, you can see the lines. I think you can see the lines better here, okay? And we did a chevron by going diagonally. We did just channel quilting by following the lines that were drawn. We did stair steps. We can do a plaid because we can go from corner to corner. So no marking, just fuse this right onto the foam. And then you've got, and I should have used a solid here because you can't really see this quilting unless I hold it sideways, but there's the chevron. And there's all kinds of quilting ideas for you. So again, take a grid, fuse it on the back of the foam, fuse your fabric on the other side, and you've got some beautiful texture. So I just wanted to show you a few more things because I want you to know about foam again. So I have double-sided fusible here, and you'll see a shine on this side, and you see a shine on this side. When you see a single-sided fusible, what you will see is a shine on this side, and this side is actually more like it has a tricot covering, and what it does is it grabs your fabric. Okay, so once I'm just going to take and lay that on, smooth it over. This is Bosel's single-sided, and what it does is if I grab the fabric and not the foam, it's still going to grab the foam. So this is a great option for a tote bag that has a loose lining because it's going to grab your fabric on the inside. Okay, so that's a great option. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is quickly, this is what I end up with, all kinds of pieces of foam. Okay, and how do I put them together? I'm using that same batting tape that you can put batting together with. So if you can see this, let's take that light off. There we go. I'm using batting tape to hold it together. So once I do my thing and do any quilting across, it's going to stay together. And this prevents you from seeing that I have two pieces together. But always, I think the best idea here is don't put straight pieces together. Add a little curve to it, and you'll be better off. You won't see those ridges. So that's that. And our next slide, I believe, I love the foam. It really makes everything look great. Oh, I did want to mention some tips before we went anywhere. On the foam, I always use binding clips or wonder clips to hold things together, because what you'll end up with is a whole bunch of bent pins. Okay. And I mentioned the clapper before. When I'm sewing with foam, I'm going to press down with a lot of pressure on my seams, because what happens with foam is it's going to take and pop up on the seam allowance. So use your clapper to compress your seams. That's great. And then always, I always use a walking foot. If I have pieces that are all fused to foam, I'm always going to use a walking foot. Even though they're fused together and it seems like it's one piece, it's still, you still can have slippage. So use a walking foot. So on our next slide, I just wanted to wrap this presentation up by saying that your projects can live up to your dreams. Be willing to test with different products and combinations so you can sew with confidence. And on the next slide, I just wanted to let you know where you can get in touch with me. I'm Kris Poor. I'm info@poorhousequiltdesigns.com if you have any questions. You can find our patterns and Bozel pre-cuts online at stinasquilt.com. So I'll just give you a little background. We used to do a lot of shows when quilt shows were around. And what we decided to do was if a local shop had bought our new patterns, it's difficult to go to a show as your own name. So we chose the name Stina's Quilt and Sewing Supplies, which is my grandmother's name is Stina. So we used to go to shows under the name Stina's Quilt. So go visit, and I'm going to give you a coupon code. So if you use the code GUILD, GUILD 10, you'll get 10% off your order. Again, the code is GUILD 10. And it can be all caps or it doesn't have to be caps. It'll work either way. So I hope you remember to use it. And I want to thank you so much for allowing me to give you this presentation. So have fun.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. It was
That
great.
was great. So much information. And
Thank
I
you.
have to admit, I have a package of the foam in my basement that I was too intimidated to use that I'm now going to go get and use.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And I've tried some of that stuff, and boy, am I going to be calling you for some hints, because I've made hats for my puppets using the heat bond, and I was like, okay, they almost work. So I need some guidance, I think, and that would be wonderful. I made
Okay.
cowboy hats. I was making cowboy hats using the heat bond.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
it's a real challenge.
Yeah. I'm not a hat maker, but I know I can answer questions on, you know.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I made 5, and I finally got one that suited me.
Oh, good.
So thank you very much. And I just ordered the baubles like 3 days ago from Annie's catalog.
Oh, good. Okay.
And so I was so excited to see you pop them up. Because I was reading to it, and I said, oh, we're going to see her this week.
Oh,
So
good.
it's really wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Well, thank you again, Kris. And
Okay.
does anybody else have a question before we move on? All right.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What was the name of the scissors that you mentioned?
Oh, they're the, these are the Karen K. Buckley.
Karen K. That's why I said I couldn't get
Yeah.
the name.
Barb, they come in like 4 sizes.
Yeah.
She's got the jumbos.
I got the large purple handle, and these are big. I like these for I have
Yeah.
larger hands.
Yeah, Karen K. Buckley. Okay, that wasn't because that'll cut that the heavyweight stuff really nice.
Yes.
So I work in fur a lot, so it's always nice to have one more
Yep.
set of seams.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to
It's-
drop off. Thank you.
Well, thank you again.
Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you
All
next
right.
month.
It is time, which I hope this is the other highlight of the meeting besides Kris, for the drawing for our beautiful Valentine's Day basket that we have right here. And we have 89 tickets in here. And they've been shaken and stirred. Oh, come on. And our winner is Betty Hastings.
Woohoo!
Yay! Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh, neat. Yeah, we all wanted it. It looks great.
All right. Our next meeting will be, how did we miss that? Where are we?
Oh, there's, well, back up to the,
All right.
But the show and tell, yeah.
get back up to show and tell. What's,
It says member
right.
show and tell,
yeah,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
one
all
before
right.
that was about the name tags. I lost track of that.
All right, the next meeting will be Wednesday, March 3rd. Please note that the topic is a change from the published schedule and will now be the show and tell. And we want you to send your pictures, but not your name tag challenge pictures, to info@EssexCountyNeedlecraft.com by February 26th, so that the March meeting will be the slideshow. Here is the name tag challenge. And so the way this is going to go is submit a photo of your name tag by April 15th. We will reveal the top finalists, that the board will select the top finalists to narrow it down. And then guild members will vote on their favorites for the winner. And there will be prizes for the winners. I think we're doing first and second prize. And we're expecting lots of submissions, so don't disappoint us. All right, so that was save the date for March 3rd. Don't forget that we are still looking for recipes for our cookbook. You can see the newsletter for what we still need. Don't forget our daily projects on Facebook. And you can check out our previous presentations on our website, www.EssexCountyNeedlecraft.com, under the Programs tab. Lastly, most importantly, everyone stay safe and stay well.
You too.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
you.
Another
Bye.
great job. Bye, thank